Welcome back to Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, as, of course, the Phillies with another one-run win last night. We'll get into the Phils and some baseball now with ESPN baseball analyst Rick Sutcliffe. He's got the Wednesday night baseball game. The defending champion Royals take on the struggling Yanks, presented by Hankook Tires. And, of course, you'll be working with John Scomby tonight and, of course, former Phil Doug Glanville on that. Rick Sutcliffe joins us now with Rick. I got to say, we're all surprised here in the Delaware Valley. This Phillies team has been giving us some reason to watch the baseball season all the way into May now.
I tell you what, Mike, I'm right there with you. I've known Pete Mackanin for a long, long time. I'm thrilled that he has an opportunity to take over a team from day one and see how much better, how he can help the young guys improve. And, we saw him early in the year. I mean, we saw him back the first week of April. We saw the issues that they were having with their bullpen. You thought, here we go again. It's going to be one of those situations. But, the next thing you know, he started putting everything together. There's a lot of young ability in that everyday lineup. There's a lot of athleticism there. And I think the biggest thing Pete done is just he's given these guys the confidence. I remember him saying, if you're going to make a mistake, do it on the side of aggressiveness. And I think that just kind of frees, a young player up to go out there and, make it doesn't mean it was the wrong play. It just means that it didn't work. And I think that's the freedom that he's given those young players is the reason a lot of these guys are playing as well as they ever have before.
Rick, one of the things I'd like to get your take on is when you have a team that's expectations are low and you get out of the gate winning and you're winning one-run games, do you think that can propel you to having a successful season, or do you think eventually the Phillies' lack of offense and overall lack of talent will catch up to them?
When you look at the Mets and the Nationals, as far as, on paper, it's going to be really, really tough for the Phillies to hang in there with these guys all year long. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. You go back and you look at some of the moves that they made with this young pitching staff and the opportunity that these guys have to just get better. You got the big boy in Franco there. You got Herrera with, the Rule 5 guy, and all of a sudden the ability's there, and this guy's playing at a level that I don't think anybody else expected. But I think that the biggest thing that Pete has done, I remember back when I was a rookie with the Dodgers, and Walter Alston was our manager, and we had lost a one-run ball game. And I'm on the treadmill next to him on a stationary bike the next day, and he was livid. And I'm like, Skip, what's up? He goes, oh, I lost the ball game. I said, what do you mean? He said, anytime there's a one-run decision, he goes, you go back and look at it. He goes, normally one manager did something or didn't do something that determined the outcome or could have changed the outcome of that ball game. Yeah, there's other things in there that could have gone on as well. But those are the type games, the one-run decision, where a manager has a lot to do with who wins and who loses. And you just go back and look at each one of those games that you're talking about, and there's a move, there's something, there's going to the bullpen, not going to the bullpen, who you pull off the bench, when do you hit and run. There's a lot of things up to this point that Pete has just done exceptionally well to put them in a position. I think they're, 5 or 6 games over 500 right now.
Amazing. Fifth most wins in all of baseball. We're talking with the 1984 National League Cy Young Award winner, Rick Sutcliffe. He'll have Wednesday Night Baseball tonight. It's Royals and Yankees. And, you won the Cy Young, making you the best pitcher in the league for that year. This Phillies pitching staff has to excite a guy who pitched at a high level.
Well, there's no question about that, particularly, a guy that comes up as a rookie and all of a sudden starts having a little bit of success there. That's the big thing. The game of baseball, we go back, to the steroid era or whatever you want to call it, Mike. Back in the day where it was arena baseball, where people were putting up runs right and left and all of that, the game of baseball to me now has gotten into where it's more about run prevention than it is run production. And a lot of that has to do, to begin with the starting rotation. Sure, you want to have a shutdown bullpen, but, the shifts and the things that they're doing in baseball now to defend against the offense and to improve that run prevention, I think that's a big, big thing. And I think that, that's another reason that the Phillies are doing so well is because of how they're defending right now, how the big plays, turning the double play when they have to do that. I just see them continuing to get better in that area as well.
Yeah, the one concern, I guess, would be you got a lot of young pitchers pitching deep into games, and then you're turning it over to the bullpen because every game is close every night. You wonder when the fumes are just going to start hitting. But I guess that kind of goes to baseball in general, Rick, how the game is changing from, as you mentioned, an offensive-minded game in the quote-unquote steroid era to what we have now. Pitching and defense, I guess, could be a recipe for hanging around for a little while if you're Philadelphia.
Mike, you can go back and look. I'm a number 1 draft pick with the Dodgers, 1979, my rookie year. I threw 242 innings. I had no repercussions whatsoever. Yeah. And when I think about Nola and I think about Velasquez and these guys, you keep your eye on them, yeah. And every now and then you might give them a breather. You might skip a start. You might, with an off day, you might run Hellickson back out there because he's been there and he's done this. But you know what? You keep an eye on them. It's a game of baseball. It's what we've done our whole lives. It's what you want to do. And I'm not a big believer. You go back to Strasburg and years ago when the Nationals shut him down because they wanted to protect him. Well, how'd that work out? It took them forever to get back to that position where they had a chance to win it all. So I'm not a big believer in these innings. I'm not a big believer in any of that mattering. It's a matter of what you see and how the kid feels. You watch. They'll keep an eye on him. Bobby McClure will keep an eye on what they do on their bullpens, their side sessions. To me, there's no reason these guys can't continue to go out there and take their turn.
Yeah, so I was going to follow up then because I'm not a big fan of the pitch counts myself. Do you also subscribe that pitch counts are a little ridiculous in this age, or do you like them?
You know what, Mike? I'm right there with you, 100%. It's not, it's the stress level that's put on it. You can go out there from time to time and throw 80 pitches, and it'd be a lot tougher on you than throwing 120. Where are you at? Bobby McClure has been around the game a long time. He's had a lot of success at what he's doing, and he can tell these guys, hey, you got a big lead now. Let's pull it back a little bit. Let's go out there and try to get out of this inning with 7 or 8 pitches rather than going out there trying to strike 3 guys out. And I just think there's a lot of good examples. I think Hellickson's a perfect guy for this staff to look at. He doesn't throw 95 miles an hour, and he's proven that you don't have to. You can go out there at 75, 80% and have a lot more success than you can, going out there trying to, strike out 15 guys a night.
Rick Sutcliffe's with us, Wednesday Night Baseball, Royals and Yankees. Rick, what do you do with Mike Trout if you're the Angels?
Wow. How many Angels
They're horrible.
Mike, do we have listening to us right now?
Well, Mike Trout lives about half hour from us, so you got a lot of Trout guys who were saying, they're not very good. The Phillies look like an up-and-coming team. Why don't they ship them home?
Yeah, you don't do that. I don't think there's any way they can. It's not Mike Trout's fault that some of the big contracts that they brought in there with the Angels aren't playing well. They're not a good ball club. We know that. It's going to be difficult for Mike Trout to put up big numbers because I don't know, maybe if you put Bryce Harper behind him, maybe somebody would pitch to him from time to time. But, that's a great question. There's no question that, if you call the Phillies right now and you say Mike Trout's available, they're going to say, hey, look at you can have our whole minor league system. We'll start over again to get a guy like that because he could take them to that level where they could compete. In my opinion, that's all it is. As far as the talent level is concerned on paper, yeah, they could compete with a lot of people when you add a piece like that. But I could be wrong. It could happen tonight, but I don't see that happening.
It seems, Rick, that a lot of these organizations, the Phillies trade Hamels, they got back a boatload of guys. They traded Giles, they got back a boatload of guys. Yep. And then you see teams making the big free agent signing, and it seems like, you sign Pujols, doesn't work. The A-Rod deal from back in Texas didn't work. It seems like getting more players instead of just locking into one player seems to be the way to go nowadays.
You bring up a great point, Mike, and you think about like what Cincinnati and Kansas City did with Cueto. If you're the Kansas City Royals, do you want those 3 young pitchers back? We know about Finnegan, we know about Lamb. Wait till you see this Cody Reed. From what people told me in spring training, he has a chance to be better than anything they have right now in that system. He's not even in the big leagues yet. But if you're Kansas City, do you want those three guys back, or do you want that game that Cueto, pitched in the playoffs? Do you want that complete game? Do you want an opportunity to put a World Series ring on? So, when you look at trades and you look at free agents and things like, yeah, he was a rental player. Yeah, it's costly. Yeah, down the line you may look back and regret it. But you know what? Right now you had a chance to win a World Series championship, and because of the help that he brought in, along with the two pitchers you gave up for Zobrist, you had an opportunity to win that thing, and you did.
Rick Sutcliffe's with us. Last one for you, Rick, as your Cubs are running away right now as the best team in baseball. They've won 8 in a row. They're 25-6. Is this finally the year that this is the best team since your Cubbies back in '84?
Oh, Mike, you know what? I mean, definitely they're a better team than they were a year ago. People ask me in spring training, what's the difference between this team as opposed to the team in 1985? We both, in '84 we went to the National League Championship. Last year the Cubs did the same thing. But when you go back and look at that '85 team, really all the Cubs did that year was they tried to bring back the guys that they had. When you think about what the ownership and what Theo Epstein has done with the Cubs this year, yeah, they got beat by the Mets in the National League Championship Series. What do? Do they stand pat? No. They went out and they brought in John Lackey, a couple of World Series rings. You bring in Ben Zobrist, who picked up a World Series ring last year. And then, of course, you had Jason Hayward, one of the better players in the game. So they weren't happy with where they were at. They weren't content with that. And they knew that the Cub fan was going to pack the ballpark. A lot of times when you look at things like, as I look at the Angels and some of the names, Mike, that you mentioned that they brought in, that's spending. When you bring in guys that the Cubs have that have an opportunity to help you get to another level, that's investing. And I think what the Cubs have done, they made a big investment in helping this team get further than they did a year ago. But, Mike, I think back to something that I heard from the Yankees, back in the day when Yogi Berra won 10 World Series championships, you only had to win 4 games to be a World Series champion. You had to get there. But there were only 4 playoff games that you have to win. I mean, nowadays you got to win 11, 12. Sometimes, if there's a game 163, you got to win 13 playoff games to put that World Series ring on. So is this the year finally or whatever? I mean, for a lot of Cub fans, myself included, you hope so. But there's just a lot that goes into it. Do they have a chance to do it? Absolutely they do. Are they going to be in the playoffs? Well, I think everybody agrees they will be. But a lot of things can happen in those short series.
Well, he threw the first pitch under the lights at Wrigley Field 28 years ago against the Phillies. Maybe they'll have lights on for a World Series at Wrigley. Tonight, Royals, they're defending champs against the Yanks, really struggling. What's the path for these two teams? They seem to both be a little disappointing.
Yeah, they are. And when you look at the Yankees, I mean, they're just really a shell, Mike, of what they were. You go back and look at that lineup in '09 when they were World Series champion. It's been a long time since this team has won a playoff game, so you've seen this coming. On the other hand, I'm not real concerned about the Kansas City Royals. Yeah, their starting rotation has put them in some deep holes here the first 30, 35 games of the year, but you don't really get overly excited or down about anything until, like Bobby Cox said years ago, wait till we get 60 games. Let's take a look at the first 60 games, and then we'll see where we're at and what we might need to add. I think when the Royals get to that point, Mike, I don't think they're going to need to add anything. I think they've got plenty there. I think it's just a matter of maybe getting that edge back that you had back in October, but I think the ability is still there for them to get back to the playoffs.
He's Rick Sutcliffe, everybody. Royals-Yankees tonight on ESPN with Doug Glanville, and, of course, baseball tonight to follow at 10 and midnight for all the guys staying up late. Rick Sutcliffe here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Good baseball talk, Rick.
Mike, a pleasure being with you. Let's do it again real soon.
Absolutely. And, of course, Yankees and Royals at 10, and, of course, at 7, baseball tonight at 10.